Hello. Like you said, my name is Cory Christensen. I'm a software engineer up in Logan, working for Journal Technologies. And welcome to my talk. This is import inclusive from JavaScript, tools for bringing the web to everyone, with some syntax sprinkled in there. So before I begin, let me tell you a few things why I speak at UtahJS and kind of the inspiration behind this talk. Last year's theme was accessibility, and that kind of struck a chord with me. I took it to heart, and one day, while working on my application at work, I noticed that I was having trouble doing some keyboard navigation things in a search function. I hit the tab button, and it wasn't going where I expected it to. And I tend to use that tab button quite a bit, and so this bothered me. And so I decided right then and there that I would set aside some time and make this application to be able to navigate it by using my keyboard. Turns out that that was the right time to do it, because shortly after I finished that task, we demoed to a client, and because we were accessible, we were able to go neck and neck with a competitor software, and we were able to hold our own against them, and we're still in talks about having this client accept a contract with us. But accessibility and adding that navigation and really focusing on bringing in additional users made the difference and gave the competitive edge. And so around that time, Call for Proposals comes out from UtahJS. And I'm kind of riding that high of like, okay, well, I just did this really cool accessible thing, so maybe I should speak about my experiences there. And then since then, it's kind of been a wave of finding out how exactly not qualified I feel to speak about this. I still feel like I'm a beginner, and I still hope that I can help anybody in here who might be on the same track as I am learn to be more inclusive in our tools. I don't speak because I enjoy speaking in front of crowds. Actually, I don't really like speaking very much in general. I'm very awkward, and I struggle with small talk, and I'm really terrible at personal relations. But I am passionate about personal learning, and I can't think of a better way to push myself deeper into a topic than teach some 100 people about it. So that's all to say, I'm not an expert on this subject, and I'm probably very far from being adequate in this particular area. I need to improve at being more inclusive, and I think that I'm not in the minority in this manner. So I'm here to share what I feel are good beginning steps for being inclusive. I'll give you an overview of some tools and strategies that have helped me, and I hope that you feel they're worth your time. Okay, so story time. Yesterday, I had the opportunity to eat lunch with my wife's grandparents. My wife mentioned that I would be giving this presentation, and so naturally, they asked what the talk was going to be about. I responded, word for word, accessibility and growing your user base. Their reaction was a slight pause, and then they kind of had some nervous laughter as my answer wasn't really clear to them. They didn't know what accessibility was. I explained that accessibility was making your websites and applications easier for those who are deaf or blind or otherwise impaired, and this made a lot more sense to them. Then my wife's grandmother half-jokingly asked, "Do you make websites for dumb people like us?" I had to think about the implications of that. Our software can make people feel stupid. If we are being inclusive in our work, not only should we consider all the different disabilities in our design, but we should sit back and really think about how our software can make people feel. Building inclusive software will give us a competitive edge, like I mentioned before, and I'm willing to bet that users will pay for services that are built to include them, including those that feel like they are not as smart as those that built the sites. Accessibility, in my opinion, is a giant leap forward in making our software inclusive. About 1 in 5 adults in the US have a disability of some kind, so it's critical that we take these users into consideration. Let's start by going over some tools that will help you make web applications more accessible. So just exit out of here real quick and let's switch. Okay, so this is Wave. Wave is a tool built by WebAIM, which stands for Web Accessibility in Mind. They're headquartered at Utah State University, and let me show you how that works. So I have it installed. There's a tiny little button up here that might not be big enough because I can't exactly increase the size of that extension button easily, but I can hit this button, and it's going to pop over here on the left, and it'll show me whether I have any errors or alerts and what features are on the website. Of course, naturally, this being Wave's website, they're not going to have many accessibility issues there. What if I were to try it with UtahJS's site? All right, so we got some positive results there. Just a couple alerts, that's not bad. It looks like there's 2 links here next to each other, but with the theme of accessibility and bringing the web to everyone before, I'm not terribly surprised that the organizers have put a lot of thought into this website, making it so that there's no errors here. Another option that we have, a tool that I use, is Google Lighthouse. This is a good all-around tool for helping you learn how to make your app more inclusive. Not only does it cover accessibility, but it measures performance and search engine optimization as well. Let's try it on their site. The way you access this is if you can bring up, this is actually built into Chrome, and here on this Audits tab, you have a few different audits that you can choose, including search engine optimization. You have your accessibility, some best practices, and performance. Let's just go ahead and run all those, actually. You can add some throttling. I've got it on a slow 4G with 4 times CPU slowdown. And all I have to do is hit this button, and it'll go through, run some tests, and we'll find out how well Google does it at its own tool for its own website. All right, so it gives us some scores. It looks like these are based out of 100. Performance, it does okay. And accessibility could do a little better. It gives you some suggestions on how to help that. But it does include all these other different audits so that you have options of how to improve your website's accessibility and inclusivity. Okay. Now, I will show this one. This is Axe. Axe is a free tool by DQ, a company that offers tools and training for accessibility. You simply install an extension in the browser and hit the Analyze button, similar to the Wave extension. Not only is this tool very thorough, but it gives you a beautiful documentation for every issue it finds to help guide and explain you how to make your site accessible. So let's give that a try. So I'll pull that DevTools open again, and here I have the Axe tab. All I need to do is hit Analyze. And on their own site, they don't have hardly any issues, just saying that headings must not be empty. Let's give this one a try on the UtahJS site as well. Let me remove Wave for a second. There we go. I hit Axe, Analyze, and it found 7 issues. That's not terrible either. The nice thing is that Axe will also include color contrast, making sure that you choose an appropriate palette to be easier for your user's eyes. However, I think the best tool we have for accessibility is our own brains. One of the most eye-opening exercises I've ever done was to literally close my eyes and open the voiceover on my Mac and listen to it go through and try to navigate the site just by using my ears. That's an exercise I encourage all of you to do. I could pull that up right now. I haven't set it up necessarily, so it might just be a mess. But I encourage all of you to, as an exercise, go home, go to your applications, and just try listening to see if you can figure out how to navigate your site and if it acts as expected. Not only should we take disabilities into consideration, but we also need to think in terms of how our users access our apps. Many people use mobile devices or have slow network connections. Have you thought about how much data your app consumes? Check your bundle size. Make use of lazy loading for a better user experience while using the app. Use responsive design in your UI. Modern browsers have tools in place to throttle your network so you can simulate slow connections. Google Lighthouse, like I mentioned earlier, can help check for performance issues. Many users don't speak English as their native language. Although there are services like the Google Translate website to allow users to decode your text, it can be a hassle to do. Many libraries require you to manually build a dictionary of translations. There are services that can translate, like I-18 Next and the Google Translate API, but these often cost some funds. Something else for us to consider. Many of you will look at this and see a save icon. But what does it actually look like? A floppy disk, right. Now, I think everyone in this room generally knows what a floppy disk is, but floppy disks are no longer manufactured. So I'm willing to guess that younger users might not instinctively understand the meaning of this icon. Think about the icons and symbols you use and how they affect your users' understanding of your application. Intuitive UIs are inclusive UIs. Now, I cannot speak on inclusivity of our tools, applications, and products and ignore the problems of inclusivity in the workplace culture. Code is written for people, so people should be taken into consideration. This is a driving point for my journey into becoming more inclusive. There are 2 suggestions I have for you that have helped me so far. Learn to see people as individuals and not groups. There seems to be a disconnect in logic sometimes, where our minds like to generalize our relationships. Here's what I mean by that. I don't like John Doe very much because he likes drinking Pepsi. Therefore, I do not like people who drink Pepsi. Now, I know this is a very contrived example, it's very oversimplified, but we need to stop seeing people by their religion, their political beliefs, gender, etc. Personal connections are far more powerful than statistically noisy observations. We need to learn to be aware of our teams, our products, and our users. This is extremely difficult to do. It's easy to quietly sit at our keyboards and code away. For people like myself, getting to know other people is difficult and exhausting. But once we do this, we can consider the perceptions of those around us before putting our own thoughts forward. We cannot be considerate without being aware of those around us. So, in conclusion, let me leave you with a favorite quote of mine from the movie Secondhand Lions. Sometimes the things that may or may not be true are the things one needs to believe in the most. That people are basically good. That honor, courage, and virtue mean everything. That power and money and power mean nothing. That good always triumphs over evil, and I want you to remember this, that true love never dies. You remember that. Doesn't matter if it's true or not. You see, we should believe in those things because those are the things worth believing in. Thank you for having me. Please, if you'd like to reach out, you can send me a message on Twitter or say hi during the rest of today.